The Eastern Cape Human Rights Commission has invited learners from various schools in the province to have discussions about issues relating to climate change and how learners can contribute to the issues relating to climate change and how they can be the agent of change and the opportunities that are there for them. But to have more discussion around this, I'm joined by the Provincial Manager for Human Rights Commission to talk to us about the purpose of this day. Please tell us about the importance of this event. Why did you decide to invite female learners particularly?
So in commemoration of Women's Month and particularly Women's Day, we invited bright young females from across the community to come and chat with us about climate change. Climate change is a human rights issue, and women particularly are affected by climate change within this province as well as KZN by the disasters that we've recently seen. So what we wanted to do is invite them to the table, have a discussion with them and hear what their understanding is about climate change and perhaps also what the solutions can be.
All right, so from these discussions, talk to us in terms of what is going to happen from having the discussions, and is it just going to be a discussion and then what happens?
So the importance of having these discussions is about popularizing the topic. We need the young voices to come and share with us their experiences, because sometimes we speak about climate change in the abstract form. But when we hear from the learners here today how climate change affects housing, how climate change affects access to water resources, how climate change affects health issues, specifically for young women, it makes us make these matters real. It makes us take it back to the communities to have these discussions. Now, one of the small things that learners can do and their families can do when it comes to climate change is to address food security and start perhaps a community garden or a garden within the family environment. So those are the small steps that we are encouraging young learners to take, and we are very inspired about the messages that they are sending to us today. Learners are saying that why are we waiting for government to take the next step, whereas we were the ones spoiling our beautiful environment. So we are encouraged and we are taking forward these discussions not only with these schools but perhaps also in the form of opinion pieces where we are motivating the learners to put their thoughts onto paper and spread the message of being agents of change.
Why did you choose female learners specifically?
Well, it's Women's Month. It's Women's Month, and women are being affected adversely so by climate change. They are the ones who are responsible mostly for the taking care of the family units, making sure that there's food on the table, preparing the food, fetching water. The housing environment sometimes is very reliant upon the well-being of women, and that's why the voices of these women are so important. And it shouldn't just stop here. It should continue back into their schools, back into their the communities and the friends, so that we can popularize these discussions about climate change.
Talk to us about the plans in terms of spreading this message. Is it just something that is going to be happening during this Women's Month, or do you have plans to actually go to schools and communities to discuss issues of climate change?
Yes, absolutely. Climate change, as I've indicated, is no longer just an abstract idea. In the Eastern Cape in the last 2 years, we've had disasters as a result of changing weather patterns. The COGTA has indicated the amounts of money that is currently being spent to repair roads, to repair housing, to repair bulk infrastructure because of the effects of climate change. We no longer have the food security that years and years ago was put in place. So we need to now address it as real human rights issues. Access to healthcare issues, access to water issues, access to equality issues, because communities in the rural environment do not have the resources that those in the urban environments may have to be readily prepared for these disasters. So surely the Human Rights Commission is very clear on its position on making sure that we are responsive to what we can see is becoming an increasing concern.
Climate change affects everyone. I mean, different sectors of society, young, old. Are you specifically targeting young people, or are you going to expand this to other sectors of society involving elderly people?
Climate change surely affects everyone. And as I've said, it goes down to the granularities of what our Bill of Rights say. It goes down to human dignity. It goes down to equality. It affects so many aspects of life that it's surely a whole community concern. But what inspires us is the movement from young women such as those in the room today, the movement of women who we are celebrating here today as a result of Women's Day. So we also heard here this morning that if women can change the Dompas practice, surely we can change the practice in terms of climate change trajectory as well. So we were inspired by the young women, and we're asking them to take this conversation forward to their bigger community, because it is a whole community concern.
In terms of career opportunities, are there any opportunities when it comes to issues of climate change, and how can these young women tap into those opportunities?
So we were fortunate to have fisheries and forestry this morning as well with us, who indicated these young people must become involved in this discourse, because there are opportunities available. And we are fortunate as well to have subjected them to the contact details of the departments who are actively engaging in this discourse and making opportunities available, especially for young women, to become actively involved in creating solutions towards climate change.
So talk to us about the people that you have invited, except for the learners.
So we've got academia here, we have the Gender Commission here, we've got government departments here, but most importantly, we've got the learners here. These are the discussions and the change makers that we want to influence today. And these are the ones that come up with the solutions for us from a human rights perspective. And that is what we hope to inculcate in the speakers and the change makers here today as well.
Talking about human rights issues, we understand that women are always victims of gender-based violence, and the Eastern Cape is no different to other places. In fact, it's got many incidents of gender-based violence. So what is it that the community can do when it comes to addressing the issues of gender-based violence?
We do think the principle of social cohesion is very important when we speak about gender-based violence. We have to be very much aware of the environment that we're coming from, and we must look at opportunities. We know what the statistics are saying. We know that the Eastern Cape is a cesspool of GBV, and we need to look to what the solutions can be. As the Human Rights Commission, one of the things that we have been looking at is making use of technology on the service of protection orders. And the fact that we need to be looking forward in how we can safeguard the rights of women in GBV situations, so that we do not sit with the same situation year after year after year, but that we come up with innovative solutions to these problems. So that is why we are also asking and looking to the younger generation to come up with these solutions.
What do you think the role of traditional leaders when it comes to the issues of addressing gender-based violence, especially when it comes to issues of stereotypes and the social norms?
So I think that's also something that the Human Rights Commission is doing, is we are taking the Bill of Rights back to traditional communities and traditional leaders as well. And we are fostering working relationships with these very, very important stakeholders on the ground. Traditional leadership are very prominent in our communities, and we need to have them also be the change makers and the leaders in inculcating an equal society for all, and a society that protects the rights of women specifically within the Eastern Cape and rural communities.